Talking to Myself. I'm Carol L. Power, your host, and the author of the recently released Raleigh Peters and the Lumberjack Ghost, a middle grade mystery, and the 2022 YA mystery, Early Summer. I've been watching various podcasts. Most of the show hosts are wearing headphones and are speaking in a big microphone. It seems so sophisticated. That's not me. I don't wear big headphones, and I certainly don't have a big microphone. I also noticed the podcasters are smooth and eloquent. I'm the exact opposite. I stumble over my words, or I do a lot of To make matters worse, I don't have a lot of followers. You could say I am not an influencer. Maybe I should quit, you're probably thinking. I often think that as well. But let me tell you why I continue this seemingly futile effort. One, I do love the guests. They all have something to share that is interesting. I like to give them an opportunity to share their stories. Two, doing my podcast is a way to jump over the gatekeepers. You know, in the past, and maybe you're listening and you're pretty young, but when I was younger, we had to rely on newspapers or television or radio stations if we wanted to get our messages out or shared with the world, right? Or you might have to hire an airplane to carry your aerial message. Now we have the internet. Granted, there are millions, probably billions of people posting their thoughts on social media, making YouTube videos or TikTok videos, right? Or they're creating podcasts on Spotify. I feel as if you have to swim from the bottom of the ocean to have your voice heard. I feel small and insignificant, sort of like zooplankton. But zooplankton has a role in the ecosystem of marine life. I like to think I have a role somewhere in the podcasting world. If you're listening, thank you. This month's guest has been an author for 15 years. In her previous life, she was a model and she worked in PR. She also taught creative writing classes. Tracy Sheffield released Nellie's Island, a picture book, in June of this year. It's about an insecure small horse who lands in Mackinac Island and finds her niche. Sheffield is also the author of the cozy mystery series, The Backyard Mystery Series. On her website, it describes a former B-list model who moves back to her hometown. And of course, there's mystery and mayhem upon her arrival. You can learn more about these books and her other writing on her website at tksheffieldwriter.com. Please join me in welcoming Tracy, or TK Sheffield. Well, thank you so much for joining me on Talking to Myself. It's a great, I get that response a lot.
We're writers, and so that's what we do, right? We talk
Right.
to ourselves and on the page.
Exactly. All right. Okay, so let's get started. So you just produced your first picture book called Nellie's Island,
Yes.
right? Right.
Yes.
So why did you write the book?
Well, first, thank you for asking. And first and foremost, thank you for having me. I have met you at a number of writing events and book fairs, and you're delightful, and your table is always filled with people eager to read your books, and I'm thrilled for you. So congrats on that success.
Thank you.
And thank you for having me. This is a joy, and I love talking about books with Wisconsin writers. My thing is, I'm a Wisconsin author, and that's my thing. I'm a member of the Wisconsin Writers Association, and I'm just thrilled to be able to promote local authors and discuss our books. So Nellie's Island came to me. I'm a fan of Mackinac. I've been a horse lover all my life. When I when I was a child, I read about this place that you could only have horses. There's no cars, like a fantasy land to me. So I couldn't wait to visit. I couldn't wait to read about it. And sure enough, I got to visit. I took my children there. I went on vacation with friends and loved it. The Grand Hotel, to the Fort Mackinac, to the downtown, to the bike path around the island. And I loved the horses. And I always thought to myself, you know, let's tell a story about the horses on the island. And then when my children were little, I got them this wonderful pony named Nellie, and she was bold and brave and a charmer. I found her in the middle of a field in Iowa, believe it or not. Before the internet, she came to me. It was like through the newspaper ad or something. No, I think it was in the Wisconsin Horseman's News, an old, wonderful publication that was talking about horses in Wisconsin. And I went out there and bought her, and she came home, and she was so bold. She was too bold for young riders, my little girls, right? And so she went on for a new career in hunter jumper land. And she was the trainer who had her said, she never refused a fence. She was just perfect for it. And so I just thought, let's give a story to Nellie. So here we go. I put her on Mackinac. What about a small filly among the great big draft horses of the island? What would she be or become? And so the story is she's a small pony, wants a big life, and she gets her talks, she doesn't sneak her way onto the ship across the island, but she gets there. And her mother always told her, be every inch you are, and then some more. So she goes to the island, she learns how to pull a cart, and she just becomes a star because she's the smallest. She's small, and horses can be very intimidating to children because they're so big, but she's small, and all the children love her. So that is the story.
Great, great. Um, so you sort of answered the next question. I said, why Mackinac Island? And
Well,
yeah, okay, go on.
well, it's just, have you visited?
Right. I was just going to say we went camping at a park across from Mackinac Island, and then we took the ferry to, the island, and we were amazed and loved it. And the horses were amazing. The horses were great.
Aren't they
So I
just
love the
amazing?
little story, though. I do think Nellie is great. I mean, I think there is a place for Nellie at Mackinac Island, right?
Right, right, exactly. I'm so glad that you got to visit because it is a magical place. I think it was voted number one to island tourist destination in the country, I think, if I remember correctly. Travel and Leisure magazine, I think, and of course that was a no-brainer to me. And they've kept so much of its historical charm.
Right.
And I'm glad you got to visit that and see it. And there is a island, riding club, and they have an arena back away from the water and the hills there. And I remember going to the little horse show one time, and it's just a place. If you love horses and history, that's the place.
Right. Now, were you ever a horse rider? Did you
Yes.
ride horses? Okay.
Yeah, I was a horse lover. I never had dolls. I always had horse statues. And I rode and trained for many, many years. And I had a heart horse, a Palomino. I had many horses, but my heart horse was a Palomino mare that, she was just, I, there's a famous writer friend once wrote, a horse's neck can absorb a lot of tears. And and so she came into my life at the exact right time when I was going through a tough time, and she was there for me, and she'll always be my heart horse. So,
Great. Excellent. All right. Do you like Mackinac Island fudge?
do you? I should ask.
I'm not I love the only fudge I like is the fudge my sister-in-law Carol makes or the fudge I make. Those are the only
Good for
two.
you. What's your
Very
trick?
basic. Well, mine is simple. It's semi-sweet chocolate chips, sweetened condensed milk, melt them, and then when it's nice and smooth, and I always do it over the stove. I don't like using a microwave.
Hmm.
It's just a dash of salt, and then a teaspoon of vanilla, and it's a can of condensed milk and
Yeah,
18 ounces of the semi-sweet chocolate chips.
that,
I love
that
it.
condensed milk makes a difference, doesn't it?
Right, right. And it's
Yeah,
not, I mean, fudge is sweet, right? But
yeah.
it's not that I don't know, sometimes there's so much in there. So, the marshmallow fluff and the this and the that. Yeah. So,
The
but I
only,
only make it at Christmas.
oh, well, you've got it in the show notes. You've got to put your recipe in if you want to share
Right,
it.
right. I have shared it on my website, my
Okay.
previous, manifestation of my website, but I might have to share it again, right?
Oh, absolutely. The only thing I would add to your recipe is mint, because I'm mint fudge, and I'm with you on the sweetened condensed chocolate milk, mint fudge. And I always used to tell, I used to tell my family, I'm like, I'll share anything with you of my life. And you're my family. I love you, but
Right.
not fudge. My fudge is my fudge. So
That's
I
funny you
don't, I
should
don't,
say that. Oh, I'm
what?
sorry. We keep interrupting. But I hate mint with chocolate. We got a cookie tray from a family once, and they put the mint cookies on the same tray, and it infused its flavor on every cookie, and it was
It,
like disgusting.
it does that. I'm sorry. I apologize on Mint's behalf. It does that. And a lot of people say, no, it tastes like toothpaste. I get it. I understand.
All right, so this is your first picture book.
Yes.
What were some of the challenges you faced writing this? Because I think I have like 9 picture books that I've written. I don't have an agent. Uh, I'm haven't found a publisher. I've been looking at independently publishing them, but there's a lot of cost. But what were some of the challenges you faced writing
Um,
Yellow Island?
Everything you just listed. No, I had an agent, no longer have an agent. Publishing is difficult. Illustrations are expensive. I happen to have found this amazing illustrator, from Wales, England. She's the one who did the images. I described what I wanted, and it was her brilliance, that brought it to life. I cannot thank her enough. She she and I worked very well together. I was very pleased with that. She loved horses. She saw the vision. So it
Right.
was serendipity and probably a little, fairy dust in there. I don't know, but it worked out. And it is, illustrators are a cost and they're worth it. There's no AI in this. She did it. These are all her drawings. And so that is the obstacle. When you go to pitch, they'll often ask you, are you an illustrator or author? You do
Right.
both because the cost
Mhm.
of illustrations can be astronomical. That
Yes.
fortunately this all worked out. I have two versions. I've got the bling version with the gold on the cover and that, which I just adore. It was produced by Book Vault and it's got all the bling. And then I've got the paperback. And they're available on Island Books on the island on Mackinac, which I'm
Oh,
thrilled to
excellent.
say they keep selling and I keep sending them more. And
Fabulous.
but the challenge is, I think, trying to do both writing and illustrating. And, it's just a tough market.
Right. And then I think also the word count,
Yeah,
right? You have to make it engaging for a young reader, but you can't make it too long.
right.
You can't make it too short. Yeah, and you didn't rhyme. It's not rhyming, correct?
No, there's hint of rhymes here and there,
Right.
for a little bit of wordplay, but no, it's not
Right.
a rhyme. No.
Right. Yeah, those are hard also, right?
Yeah.
All right. So you have these cozy mysteries out there, and I like how you say that it's what was it like? I just got that email from you.
I'm so
So
They're
it's
the Devil Wears Prada meets a Wisconsin Supper Club. A former
yeah,
model comes home and opens a craft mall, and things just start going wrong, including murder.
right.
But there's stories to
Excellent.
laugh and escape. That's what I write. There's no politics, no bad language, no, sex scenes. It's for somebody who wants an escapist read that's funny and fun. And I'm thrilled to say they've won a number of medals, humor medals, IBPA humor medal. Killer Nash, one is up at Killer Nashville for a
Oh,
comedy.
nice.
Yeah, so, and to the writers listening, keep going. My first book, Model Suspect, it was rejected. It was a struggle. I'm thrilled with that indie pubbed, and now 13 awards later. Keep going, keep writing.
Okay. All right. So you think indie, I know you and I had this conversation. So you think indie publishing is a good route? I know I hear a lot of people, oh, I have to traditionally, publish. What are your thoughts?
Number one, if you want to write a book, go for it. Do it because there's nothing like it. It's a slog and it's tough and you're going to cry and you're going to laugh, but do it. And surround yourself by a good writing group and a good critique group. Okay. That doesn't mean your friends. It means people who are going to give you honest feedback and then edit the heck out of it. And then when you're ready, if you want to try traditional, try querying. Go for it. Learn as much as you can. And at the right time, if it's not working, still believe in that book and think about Indie Pub. Valerie Beal, she's a Wisconsin book marketer and author. She's got wonderful advice. We're so lucky to have her in our state. Join a group. We've got Wisconsin Writers Association. We've got on the website. There's a whole list of local groups you can join. So, the market is changing all the time. Traditional book sales were down this last quarter quite a bit, but indie sales are up. So there's a place for you in the market no matter what, but it's things are especially in the ebook side, things are trending indie. I don't know, what about you? I should ask you that.
I sort of feel the same way. I am trying to, traditionally publish my picture books primarily because of the cost. But I am at a point where I'm like, maybe I should start looking. But my family, because I just released the Raleigh Peters and the Lumberjack Ghost, they're like, no, let's play this out. Let's see how this goes. Keep pitching. I'm taking picture book classes constantly. I am toying with the idea of illustrating. I do draw,
Good for
not
you.
well. No, I draw, but not well. But I thought, maybe I need to start working on that.
Well, if there's
Uh,
anyone who can do it, it would be you, given what I
oh,
have seen you produce. And congrats on your recent
oh,
release too.
oh, well, thank you. Yeah. But I didn't illustrate that. That was the publisher hired an illustrator. I am very grateful for the independent publishers who took me on. Thank you to Chicken Scratch Books for the Raleigh Peters and Lumberjack Ghost, Orange Blossom Publishing for releasing my early summer YA mystery, and Black Rose Writing, who published Is a Snora Snores, my very first children's book. What makes a story a great story?
Excellent question. I'm going to ask you that one too, but I think first of all, you have to have a great story. You have to have conflict, right? So you have to understand what the conflict is, because otherwise it's just a laundry list of events, right?
Yes.
Understand
Mm-hmm.
what your conflict is. For example, in Nellie, her conflict was she's small, she's frustrated with her own size, and she wants to be something in the world. So she figures it out on her own. Her aunt and her parents are there saying, "Be every inch you are, go for it." And so she gets her way on the ship and sails, and things work out not without difficulty. So you have to understand what the difficulties are, no matter what the story, and then know your audience, right? Know the words and the right, that's your writing craft that can speak to that group. For example, in my mysteries, the conflict is we've got a former model who's emotionally withdrawn, returns to her hometown, and she has to reconnect with her family and friends while solving mystery. Her conflict is internal and external. Internally, she's emotionally withdrawn and unavailable because of her career. So she has to come home and reconnect, which is difficult with family. You know,
Right.
her family puts the fun in dysfunction. And
Uh,
then, you know, she has to solve mystery. So if you understand the conflict, I think, and then know your audience, whether it's middle grade or children or adult, know what they're reading, and then employ your writing craft.
okay, so conflict, right? So at the
Yes.
core, your character has to have some kind of like inner conflict or something going on. All right,
Right.
so but what's different between writing for adults and writing for children?
Well, word choice, length,
Okay,
obviously, and word choice. You're going to use
okay.
smaller words, shorter sentences for children, right? And you're going to let your pictures tell a lot of the story. That's where that
Hmm.
illustrator comes in.
Right.
So if you're writing the picture book, let those pictures tell the story. For example, in Nellie, the illustrator decided, I said I wanted a retro vibe. Well, these pictures echo the 1940s
Hmm.
technique,
Hmm.
illustrative technique, and that was her idea. I let her run with it, and that is what I think gives the story so much of its charm.
Right, right. Picture books to me are more difficult to write because, like an adult, you can, I don't know, well, you have a greater word count, right? You're going to do 70 or 80,000 word count book, right? Or maybe shorter, a little longer. Where the picture book, you have to have it, packaged neatly, right? It has to have the conflict, right? Within
Yes.
500 words or, between 5 and 1,000, right?
Right.
And you need to really, I think too, narrow in on the age, right?
Yes.
Because you could have a board book, you could have an early picture book, you could have a like
Yes.
a kind of a picture book, right? So you kind of hone in on the age too. Did you hire someone to read the book when you felt it was ready to go? Right,
Right.
right,
And get the feedback. And most of the time, the editors will tell, cut this, cut this, cut this, because we overwrite. That's the thing. Writers
yes,
want to overexplain. We want to overdescribe.
right,
We want to You need that critical eye to cut that thing to the bone so that the reader has the most ultimate enjoyment experience without being bogged down in unnecessary text.
right. It's like me packing my suitcase. I weigh a
Yeah,
lot.
perfect. Exactly.
Right. So talking about editor, I just want to clarify for our listeners, developmental editor or copy editor when you hire an
Copy.
editor.
If
Oh,
I'm
so you,
struggling with the story, I'll go with developmental, but most of the time these days, because I work with a critique group, I can go to the copy.
okay, so you feel pretty confident once you've gone through your critique group
Right.
that you can just go in there and get an edit. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's usually what I do also. Developmental editors can be good and useful, but they can also be very expensive,
They can
right?
be very expensive. And if you're first starting out, this is your first manuscript, I would say yes, work with a developmental editor. But once I've got a romantic comedy coming out, I've done a bunch of screenplays. Once you understand the structure of a story, I do a four act actually. Once you understand that structure, you and your length, you usually can have a pretty good eye as far as it develops. And then you have a critique group giving you, I always ask about pace. How's the pace? And so you
Yes,
kind of can self-edit that to a degree after you've done a number of them.
right, right. So what age group would you say Nelly's Island would fall under?
Well, first of all, I'd say it's for horse lovers of all ages.
Right, okay,
And
great.
I would say it's probably more to the 4 to 7 age
Okay.
group, maybe an early reader.
Okay, excellent, excellent. All right. So you used to do modeling, correct? You
Yes,
used to be a
yes,
model, right?
yes.
Were you like a model for a specific like makeup line or clothing line, or were you like in New York City and they'd call you and say, "Hey, Tracy, we need you to do the runway, in Milan or something."
Oh, I wish. No, no. I thank you for asking. Yes, I did when I was in college and beyond into my 20s. I did modeling, and I did some broadcast work and I didn't leave the state. So at that time the social media didn't exist. So if you wanted to do it, you had to move to New York. And I
Right.
wasn't going to do that, but I did have a lot of fun and was able to do some fun events in Chicago and, Madison and Milwaukee. And I did this one, I used to model. It started with, I worked at a bank when I was in college, and a man, he owned a coat store, Carmen's in Madison, and he'd come through and he'd say, would you come over and model coats for me? You got the look. And so he was such a sweet man. And I went over and I started modeling his coats. And I think that's why I love coats to this day.
I thought you were going to say that you modeled, like you were, you know how the car shows in
Oh,
Chicago,
yes,
you see
yes.
those models draped over a car? Did you ever do that?
No, no, I can't say that I have that. I don't remember. I don't think so.
Right.
I've done a number of work, but I don't think I've draped over cars.
Even if you did, you probably don't want anyone to know that, even if you
Right.
did do that, correct? Right?
Correct.
At the beginning of the show, I also mentioned some other things that you had done besides the modeling. Could you just tell us a little bit more about these things?
Yes, I worked in public relations for a long, long time. And then, I had a life event. I went through a divorce. I went back to school and got a master's degree in writing, and I taught college writing for a number of years. So
Okay.
I had a really fun time, met so many fun students, just really was happy doing it, encouraging them to reach their dreams. But then I woke up one day and I said, I'm not, here I am, ironically teaching other students and encouraging them to reach for their
Right.
goals, and I'm not doing mine, which was writing books. So, I shifted into writing full time. That's what I do. I do a little work for Wisconsin Writers Association, but then I'm just full time at this. So,
Right. I do like when people when they approach you and they think it's a hobby. Is this your
yeah,
hobby?
no,
And I'm
it's full
like, no,
time.
it's full time. Yeah. And I know this sounds a little snotty, but I'm like, you don't get a book deal or you don't get a book published if you don't put the time in for
Right.
this, right?
I'm an early morning writer. My 6 a.m., sometimes 4 a.m., 4 a.m. to about 10, 11 is sacred time.
Okay.
I'm editing, I'm writing, I'm reading, I'm studying, I'm, with that manuscript,
Yes.
and it's pretty much 6 days a week.
I did like the fact that the advice you gave about if you have a story, write it. What other advice would you give to writers or people who want to write books or write for a living?
Read, read what you like, you know, um, because reading is exercise for the brain, and you absorb word flow and you absorb ideas and you absorb punctuation and spelling, right? It's good for your brain. It's different than video. Read. And then surround yourself by a really good group, because the group is will pull you along when you don't feel like it, when you feel overwhelmed, when you feel like your work is terrible. That person in your trusted writing group can go, wait a minute, let's reframe this. Look at this differently. Here's a part where you did really well. I felt the same way. Submit your work for the deadline and let's look at it. So you get that fresh set of eyes and you get that trusted writing group that pulls you through. Because if you're doing it on your own, writing is so difficult. It's so much rejection, bad reviews, constant rejection if you're pitching or querying. You need that trusted group who's going to say, stay in the game.
I was in a writing group in my community, and I found that it was actually detrimental to my writing. They were very critical. They were all writing poetry, and I submitted a screenplay, and they just ripped it apart. Uh,
Well,
all
we've
I
all been there, right?
and yet I'm thinking to myself, okay, I've already published 3 books. None of you have published anything, but you're just ripping me apart. I had to leave that group.
And you move on to the next one. And
Right,
because there's so many online groups these days, right?
right,
We meet online with my critique group.
right,
And if yes, if and you are, you're the experience with that. I've had that same thing in my master's program. We had workshops all the time, and there were constant criticism. But you cannot take that personally. You have to go,
right,
okay, I bid you all good luck. Your writers stay with it and move on to another group
right,
that experience your level, right? You're an advanced level critique group. That's what you need. And
right,
so you find them and you understand there's going to be maybe even in that group, you'll have a bad apple or a sour apple. And you go,
right,
you know what? So and so, you don't need to read my work. I love you dearly and I'm happy for you that you're here, but don't worry about my stuff. And you work with the other people.
sure,
It's how you negotiate it.
right. Well, and I tell people too, beta readers, critique readers, they don't have the final word.
Nope.
right? They don't, right? And so oftentimes when I'm in a beta group through SCBWI, Wisconsin, and that's Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, if anyone cares. I always, SCBWI is a little easier, but I tell people your beta readers don't have the final say. And my rule of thumb is if I submit something and, each beta reader looks at it and they give me their feedback, if all of them question a particular thing in my book, then I'm like, okay, that's definitely something I need to address and look at, right? If someone says, oh, I don't like the fact that she has blue eyes, you should make her have brown eyes, I'm like, okay, fine, right? And the other thing I find with beta, I'll get the feedback and then I'll look at it. Like I'll wait a couple weeks before I actually look at it and then I let it digest. And I don't necessarily sit down with that feedback to go back in. I use it. I'll go back later and start making changes, but I don't use it purely for like editing or critiquing. It's just something for me to work and think about. Yeah.
Exactly. And I recall, and I don't know for sure if the story is true, but it was what I always think of when I think about feedback and, revisions and that. I believe, and I read this somewhere, it's my Star Wars theory, right? George Lucas wrote Star Wars and that was the title, and everybody, it turned out to be a huge, massive, world-changing hit, right?
Right.
Well, I believe one of the corporate suits didn't like the name Star Wars. And his feedback was name it after Pluto, like, Land of Pluto, or he had some weird corporate sounding
Right.
name. And Lucas is like, no, it's Star Wars. So,
Yes.
if you trust in your gut, you trust your gut, believe in your story because it's original to you, right? It's
Yes.
original to you. If it's an important point and you've had feedback on it and you've listened, but you're like, no, I know what I need to do.
Do you have any more thoughts or ideas before we close the show?
Well, thank you for having me. And this is delightful to be able to talk about writing and books and Mackinac Island and horses and fudge recipes
Without the mint.
without the mint. My thoughts are, write your book. You got it in you, stick with it, write it. Support your local bookstore and library. If you want to start out selling your book, right? You've worked hard. Maybe you've got a traditional deal, maybe you've got a small press, maybe you're indie, and you want people to notice your book. Go on podcasts like this, support other writers, get to know your local bookshop, support them, get on their newsletter, and go to your local library and get on their newsletter and support the authors coming in. Give first, and then, right? You've got people who believe in you, and then go out and say, "Look, I wrote this book. I hope you enjoy it."
Yeah, I like that. Give first. That's
Yeah.
excellent. Thank you so much uh, for joining me. This was a lot of fun. And good luck with everything you're doing. And when's your next book coming out then?
Oh, thank you for asking. It's a throw. Do you remember the old screwball comedies?
Okay,
Remember?
yes.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
so I
Like
have got
Lucille Ball.
exactly, and
Okay.
Cary Grant and Katharine
Oh,
Hepburn, right?
sure.
Bringing Up
Yes.
Baby. I've got a screwball magic romance coming out in the advanced reader copies are almost ready to fly, and then
Oh,
it'll be out
great.
February 26th because it's a
Nice.
Valentine's show. So
Oh, fabulous. Now, will that be a mystery too, or just a romance comedy?
just the rom-com, yeah. The summer one, the sequel to that will be a little bit of a mystery, but this one, no, is just pure fun.
Oh,
It's called The
excellent.
Valentine Lines. And
Right.
Cupid becomes a matchmaker on Earth, and I call it Schitt's Creek with magic.
Oh, funny, funny. One more question I did forget to ask. You said the book Nellie's Island is available in Mackinac Island. Can people get it like at On Amazon, at bookstores? Where can people
Yes, you
buy their own copy?
exclusively on Island. You can get the paperback at Island Books. Thank you, Island Books. You can
Okay.
also get it at my little bookstore in Genesee Depot. You can get the fancy signed copy. You can get the paperback at my store in Genesee Depot at the Mill. You can contact me for a hard copy, a signed copy, and I'm happy to mail it to you. So, and it's
Good.
on, the paperback is available on the Zon,
What
Amazon,
is it? Oh, the
Amazon,
Zon.
the Zon.
Tracy, you were a great guest. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you later.
Take care.
Okay. That wraps up another show. Thank you for listening. Please like and share. September 20th is our Rotary Artisan Festival in Congan Gardens, Delavan, Wisconsin. It starts at 9 and runs until 3 o'clock. See you there. And if you see me walking around and I'm moving my lips, know that I'm talking to myself.